And if every Sunday when you come into service, or every time you're in your car listening to the radio station and a worship song comes on, if you start singing along, and that's your core, the appreciation for that love, and our humanly attempt to return that love in whatever capacity we can, if at your core that's where your worship comes from, every song, every Sunday, whether it's a contemporary song or a hymn or a chant, anything, if that's the basis and you sing from that, that's when you have true worship.
Welcome, everyone, to our 97th podcast, Renew Your Mind. With us today, we have Senior Pastor Paul Gruenberg. We have our worship leader, Jordan Kettlewell, and myself, Dana Hall, as the moderator. And today we're going to talk about the history of today's contemporary music at the First United Methodist Church of Gaylord. And I talked with Tom Listvan, and he's got a real passion for contemporary music at our church, but just in general, because his testimony is how he heard a certain song that was contemporary related, and it just spoke to him, and it really brought him into a relationship with God. And it's a neat story. He told me, I guess he allowed me to share his testimony or his story, but in 1989, he heard a song that was actually written by, I believe it was a person from Gaylord. His name was Carmen James, and it was called, Isn't It Amazing Something about, Isn't It Amazing What a Prayer
Can do.
Can
I
do.
remember that song.
Thank you, because my notes are really sloppy. But he became really great friends with Carmen, who I learned passed away. He wrote the song, and then Mark Farner, who was the lead singer of Grand Funk, he sang that song, and that's just what really spoke to Tom at that point in time. So in that effort, since 89, him and his wife in 92, they formed a production company called Light Production, and they brought contemporary music at that point in time to Gaylord, Michigan. He said that in 94, they brought Jeff Moore and The Distance.
Yeah, I remember them.
Okay, and he said he was a college friend of Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Yep.
So they brought him to Gaylord. In 1996, they had Jay LaFoon.
Jay LaFoon, yeah.
And they had that concert on the lawn. And they also had some local, he called them kids, but aspiring musicians that also led up to that event. In 1997, they brought Josh McDowell, and he mentioned it was the Right from Wrong campaign. And then in 1999, they brought Josh back again. And then in the early 2000s, they brought in Festival Conduas, which is the Spanish name for festival. And that was actually a precursor to the Big Ticket that started in the mid-2000s. So that led us into, how did the contemporary music start at the First United Methodist Church of Gaylord? That started actually with Reverend Nail, and they had a once a month on Saturday evening contemporary.
Saturday evenings, yep.
And that's what brought Jordan in, I believe.
Yes.
And it also brought in Dan Hawkins, who's our producer, and his family, Dustin and his sisters, and that. And then when Pastor Dan Bowman came in 2014, I believe it was the summer, we actually added a contemporary service. And Jordan, I think you
To Sunday morning, added
to
it
Sunday morning. Thank
right.
you for, and I think you played in that as well, correct?
For a very brief time.
Mhm.
So when the contemporary service was all getting started, doing Saturday nights,
Once a month, right?
it started as once a month. I think we increased that. I think we were every other week, or possibly, I think it might have been every other week before it went to Sundays. But that was, I was at the time I was doing youth ministry at Gaylord FUMC and doing praise and worship with kids over there, which I loved doing. And that was I was committed there for Sunday mornings. And so when it transitioned into Sundays, I wasn't able to continue with it anymore. But it was so much fun being on the ground floor of, the building of the contemporary service for the Methodist Church. And it was a call out of the blue, which seems to have been some of the biggest God moments that I've had in my life, is just a call out of the blue from Mike Cooper asking me if I'd be interested in, consulting with him and trying to put some ideas together. And, he called me, I was thinking to myself, I am in no way qualified to be your guy for this, but sure.
But thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And we started putting a little band together, and, once a month service, and it started gaining some traction, and over time got to where we are now, which is still growing, but very excited to be back involved with everything.
Yeah, I just think that's neat. And I remember you playing at some of our summer services before that contemporary band was in place. But I'm sure that's why Mike called you, because your songs were great.
Well, and I think largely my mom had a lot to do with that as well.
Yeah.
She
signed you up.
Yeah, she tends to make sure that I get voluntold for certain things here and there. So I know that she had been talking to Mike at some point and suggested it, and then he got in touch with me. So
okay.
But everything hit at all the right times, and I was able to get involved and help out, and it was really just a blessing to be able to be part of it. And then now, so many years later, another phone call out of the blue was just very clearly one of those moments where God was grabbing me and saying, "This is the direction you're going now. Go."
Go.
And here we are, and it's just been an incredible blessing all the way around.
It was funny because we were in transition at that moment. Jordan Chambers was leaving the church. He was becoming a senior pastor at another church. And the prayer was, "Lord, who do you have in mind for this?" And your name came up. I talked with Jeff Fitzgerald. "Oh, yeah, I know Jordan." And so I said, "Hey, can you talk to him and see if he can fill in for a little bit?" And you filled in for a little bit, and all of a sudden you're...
Yeah, it probably didn't happen this quick, but in my recollection, the way it works out in my memory was I showed up one Sunday and filled in on bass guitar. The next Sunday, you guys told me I had to sing a song, and the next Sunday, all right, man, you're in charge.
Maybe it wasn't quite that quick. But
I know it wasn't that quick, but it was exciting. It was exciting being part of everything and how it all came together.
So Dan, our producer, has got a mic now.
We just drug him in.
Hooked him in, the shepherd staff. So Dan, as things got started, what was your perspective in moving from Saturday nights to Sunday mornings?
Yeah, I joined in with Jordan on the Saturday evenings, mostly running the tech.
Okay.
Wow. Here I am still, right? So I was running sound and such, and then they wanted to initiate a Sunday, basically turn that into the Sunday morning. And a lot of the people, the reason they did Saturday night is because they couldn't be there Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just worked out with people's schedules for the musicians and the leaders because they were at other churches.
Right.
And
well, yeah, because in the beginning, that's kind of what the entire praise band was just.
Correct.
Folks from other churches around going, yeah, let's come together and let's help get this thing started.
Yes. And so the church community as a whole really did so into it, including Jordan Chambers, who was at a different church at the time, and then my brother, and I was there running tech. My sister played a little bass. You had a full band.
Yeah.
At one point, another keyboardist who was I think from the church, and then Mike Cooper's son, Stephen Cooper, played the guitar. The transition started shortly thereafter, about 6, 7, 8 months, and then Dan, Pastor Bowman, asked us if we would. Some of us could stay, and not a lot of us could. But I do know that Jordan Chambers would come over for the contemporary service, which at the time was in between 2 traditional services.
Right, an 8 and a 10:30.
Yes, exactly. And so it was a short window there. But we had various people leading the singing. Val and Jenny were there. Mike Cooper led one Sunday. Pastor Dan Bowman led singing one Sunday. I pretended to lead one song, I think, once. Boy, that was miserable. I prefer to stay on an instrument or behind the mixer. It slowly grew from there. Then Jordan Chambers came. He started attending regularly, and
he was hired in.
Yeah, he was hired in. Yeah,
it's the youth family director.
Yep. And so then we were able to form kind of a more consistent team, and Stephanie and I joined in and started playing consistently there on Sundays. And next thing you know, we had 5 or 6 people that were there every Sunday. Now you can start forming a band. We didn't really have a drummer. I think Jeff Fitzgerald's son started playing drums, and then Caleb Hay.
Caleb Hay.
Yep.
And so there's plenty of musicians.
Now on the praise team, almost everybody is a drummer.
That is
might play
cool.
other instruments, but we're all drummers.
That is so rare.
It is.
Usually you have a full band and no drummer. Now you guys got like 4 drummers, and you're all playing your secondary instruments. Or that's just music in life. You ebb and flow between instruments and singing. I don't sing, so I just ebb and flow between instruments.
Yeah, it's been a cool evolution with the contemporary service and the praise team, and still growing.
Yeah. And we really have to give a big thank you to those who are not a part of the contemporary service. The stalwart givers, the people who have traditionally sung hymns, been a part of the traditional service, to be able to see beyond what their comfort level is to try and reach another generation for Christ. If we're unwilling to expand our ability to reach other folks, in other words, we're only interested in people like us, then that's all you'll get are people like us. And we want to be able to expand. And John and Dan, Pastors John and Dan, had that foresight to be able to begin to reach out beyond what was comfortable for many people in the church, to reach out to another generation or another type of worship style. So a big thank you to the people who have come and been a part and supported the church in a very traditional model, and have allowed this contemporary model of worship to begin to really thrive here at our church, and thus be able to reach younger families who may or may not be as intuitive to the hymns and the creeds and those types of things.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to the congregation. I don't know how many times the people would come up afterward and they were showing up to attend the next service, but they maybe would hear the ending tune or whatever from the contemporary, and they loved it. But they would say honestly that that's not my style of music when it comes to my personal worship on Sunday morning. But we're so thrilled to have you here and to establish that in the church. So that's just something rare you just don't see. If it's not good for them, then usually they don't want it at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's why it's grown and continues to grow.
Plus, you were really, really good. So, and you are still really good. So.
Yeah, that's the one downside. As far as I see it, as being the worship team leader and leading the congregation in worship. I wish I could be hidden behind something.
Yeah, but
people need to be able to see
right.
who's leading. But because I don't, I've played in secular rock bands and done that. And I've been the singer and the guitar player, and that's a lot of fun. But I don't see it as the solo aspect. For me, it's just I'm providing a framework so that we as a congregation can sing, so that we can sing together. The praise team, the congregation. Everybody. The only uncomfortable part about that to me is that I'm right there in the middle.
Right. Right.
Like Communion Sunday, if I'm happen to be behind the lectern and I'm just
You're
providing
happy.
some support music, oh, that's great. I love that.
Mhm.
Oh,
I love that.
But you're such a good leader. I mean, I think you commented that I don't want to say outside your comfort zone because you never show that, but it's challenging. And you feel vulnerable possibly, but you never come across that way. And when you speak from your heart, it's very meaningful.
That's so yeah, that's where okay, confession time to everybody who's listening. That's where I am I do feel vulnerable and uncomfortable. Not so much with the music. I've been playing music for a long time, so I feel very comfortable in that. And especially once the song gets going, at that point I'm just worshiping. I'm worshiping God. So I'm everything else kind of falls to the side, and I'm in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just having a moment of praise and worship. Now, in between, trying to get my thoughts out, trying to organize, my thoughts about that song or something like that and express that, I do feel uncomfortable and vulnerable at times because I'm not, Pastor, I expressed this to you when you first broached the subject of me taking over as a worship leader. I'm not qualified for this job. I'm not. I'm not I've never been to seminary. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a theologian of any kind. I always feel like I'm not going to say the right thing because I'm not as educated as, say, Pastor Paul is. All I can say is that I'm up there worshiping and leading worship just from the standpoint of another broken person in a fallen world, who just really, really loves and appreciates his Savior. And that's where worship comes from me.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from knowing that I don't deserve any of the grace and forgiveness that I've been given. I didn't deserve the sacrifice that he made. It comes from knowing that I've made more mistakes than a person should. And somehow he still loves me. And so when I get up to worship, that's what comes out. No matter what the song is, that's what comes out. And that's what you hear when we praise. And I feel like that's where, when it comes to worshiping God through song, that's where it should come from with everybody, not we're getting through this portion of the service so that we can get through the next portion of the service so that we can do the closing song so that I can go home and grill hot dogs or whatever it's going to be. We all know whether everybody has the day that they're not that focused at church. They're not necessarily feeling it. There's a lot of things going on, but all of us as saved Christians, we know that our Savior loves us in a way that is unfathomable, and that we, at our core, we don't deserve it. There's no good work that can earn us our grace because we all fall short. And if every Sunday when you come into service or every time you're in your car listening to the radio station and a worship song comes on, if you start singing along and that's your core, the appreciation for that love, and our humanly attempt to return that love in whatever capacity we can, if at your core that's where your worship comes from, every song, every Sunday, whether it's a contemporary song or a hymn or a chant, anything, if that's the basis and you sing from that, that's when you have true worship. That's when you can, and I would love it. It would be, and I've seen this happen on Sundays where the Spirit is moving and everyone in the church is coming from that standpoint. And it is so overwhelming. There's times that it's hard to even finish the song because the emotion and the Spirit is so strong. And it's just a beautiful thing. And praise and worship to me is a beautiful thing. And I think if everybody were to come to the songs from that standpoint of appreciation for the grace and the love and the forgiveness, you'd just feel the song and you would connect with God through music in a way that you just want more every time.
And I think that's what makes you qualified for your position.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Literally the only thing that makes me qualified for the position. I've got nothing else.
That's not true. Well, thank you. I think we should end on that note. We really appreciated having you join us, Jordan, and you've added so much. You've given us so many things to think about and think about when we worship through music, and we just really appreciate you sharing your love for music and for Jesus and for your church family, and just really appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I feel the same.
So we are coming to you from the First United Methodist Church. We're located at 215 South Center Street in Gaylord, Michigan. We have a traditional service at 9 a.m. and a contemporary at 10:45 a.m. We'd love to have you join us in person, but if you can't, we also have our services on Facebook Live and through YouTube. If you have any questions at all, please call 989-732-5380 or feel free to Google us, and we can answer most of your questions via our website as well. So thank you, everyone, to all our listeners. Thanks again.